Welcome back. A lot to digest. Panel is here. Hugh Hewitt, host on the Salem Radio Network. Joy Reid, host of AM Joy, weekends on MSNBC. NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker, of course, been covering the Clinton campaign. And Chris Cillizza, political reporter for the Washington Post. Wow, Donald Trump has been tweeting all morning. We've got a lot to digest. Quickly, one of them, polls close, but can you believe I lost large numbers of women voters based on made-up events that never happened? Media rigging election. Hugh, you've backed away from Trump. How did Mike Pence defend him this morning?
I thought Mike Pence did a very good job. In fact, I'm a Game of Thrones geek, and I was thinking there's Davos Seaworthy defending Stannis Baratheon in the bad days of Stannis Baratheon.
By the way, you and Maureen Dowd, she made a Game of Thrones reference this morning, too, talking to him, calling him the Mad King.
But I got to say, the end of the Biden interview, this is not in response, I'm sorry, it's so newsworthy, what he said about the American Department of Defense not being able to do Mosul and Aleppo at the same time, what he said about everything. It leads to, here we have the worst election in modern times when the greatest crises of the post-Soviet era are growing. It's a disconnect that's beyond me.
The irony, though, is that Donald Trump, the last thing he wants to do is talk about Syria. Yeah.
That's right. Well, my takeaway was the end of your interview with Mike Pence. When you asked him if he would accept the election results, he said, yes, of course we'll accept the results. Donald Trump is sending out the complete opposite message, and he's trying to lay the groundwork for this idea that the election is rigged. And yesterday you had the Clinton campaign and Paul Ryan coming out in very strong terms saying we will respect the results of this election, and Republicans increasingly concerned that they need to be louder about that so that whatever happens on Election Day is respected.
But I think you also see the sort of Mike Pence, because he's trying to, yield to what are clearly the talking points that the candidate wants, which is that the election is rigged, because he said that to you. And then he said, of course, we'll accept it, but he still has to sell this idea. Look, Jeff Sessions is also selling this idea. I think for the Republican Party, just as an institution, there has to be a righting of the ship, because the integrity of the United States election, I think, is bigger than any candidate.
I think he is such a dominant figure within the party. I know not for party regulars. Many party regulars reject that idea that Paul Ryan is but I think they're North Star. But I think for your average Republican voter in this election, he's such a big figure that, and it's so hard for me to imagine that what he says in tweets over this last week, somehow 3 weeks from now, he says, and I just want to say, I've announced that I've placed a call to Hillary Clinton to congratulate her. Like, I literally struggle to wrap my mind around him doing that. I think it's in all of his business interests. Conservative Media Network, a rump faction of the Republican Party. So all of those suggest that he not concede. And this idea that, like, well, Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan say he concede. Yeah.
I mean, Mike Pence may concede for.
Secretary Clinton, if she wins, may get a call from Governor Pence. The tweet that will matter most when the best accounts of this worst election are written, I think, will be Dr. Rice, Secretary of State Rice's enough last week. Now, I have enormous admiration for Secretary Rice. She's my age. She went to a different America than I did. She was in Birmingham, Bombingham. If you read Extraordinary, Ordinary People, you get an account of an American hero. And when she tweeted out enough this week, it's one word, but it underscored, I think, the resignation to results that are in the air.
And by the way, part of the calculation on the part of the Clinton campaign is that they don't want to just win, but they want a big win so that the results can't be questioned. They're sending out emails to supporters saying it's imperative that you come out in big numbers because we need this to be decisive.
I think it's important. He's not, we tend to say, well, this campaign, the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign. What he is running now is not a campaign in any traditional sense. It's sort of either a sort of revenging or avenging against people who he believes have wronged him, media, Clintons, Republicans, or sort of a grievance, a Festivus, an airing of grievances. A campaign has a message that you stick to, that you have figured out resonates with the American people and that you believe. He had 19 messages in 5 minutes over the weekend when he was disassembling his teleprompter. Those are 8 words I did not think I would ever utter in public. I mean, we're talking about something that's not really a campaign in any sense.
So let's move from the presidential to down the ballot, because I think there are a lot of people who think the presidential race may be in one category, the results may be known, but we just don't know the size of victory. The question is, what will Republicans do down the ballot? And right now, Democrats want to go after Trump heavily, and Republicans are trying to distance. Here's a little montage of new ads just this week.
I have every intention of supporting the Republican nominee.
Portman stood by Trump, even after seeing Trump brag about sexual assault.
Would you point to him as a role model?
Absolutely.
I have a lot of disagreements with Donald Trump. I've been very clear about that. But what's important for Pennsylvanians is having a senator who'll stand up to any president's bad ideas.
I have daughters. I have friends.
For me, it was the final straw.
Hugh, obviously, every Republican, Tom Cole said, it's a bar fight. We're trying to save every Republican no matter what it takes. Some have to distance from Trump. Some can't. Damage down the ballot. What do you see?
An analyst hat, not my advocate hat. I think the House is very, very secure, and Paul Ryan is doing a fine job of directing resources. I believe the Senate is going to be very close and will come down to Nevada. As to whether or not. I think Toomey's going to survive. I'm an outlier here. He's a good senator. He works very hard. He's a wonderful guy.
Well, I think the problem is that there's a threshold at which the margin of Hillary Clinton's victory in a state becomes fatal to the person down ballot. You think of a state like Florida, where if Hillary Clinton wins by 2 or 3, you could see Marco Rubio surviving. You're seeing more ticket splitting, at least in the polling, than you typically see. But at a certain point, the tsunami takes down all of the other candidates. I don't think Toomey will survive. I think Wisconsin is baked in. Portman seems to be the strongest of the down-ballot candidates, but also Ohio is the least associated with Trump. I mean, the governor of Ohio is not with him.
In some ways the least, and most in odd ways, which I will show you, actually, in a minute. When we come back, Divided America.